Welcome to the OC. I'm Phil. This is my co-host Cory, and we are Ordered Chaos Podcast. And what are we talking about today, Cory?
Ooh, this is kind of a two-parter, meaning it's the second part of a previous podcast that shall remain nameless. Montauk Project.
Hey, it's the Mont. It wasn't that bad. I mean, it was a little painful.
It was, yeah.
Pulling off a Band-Aid.
Yeah, from your eyeball.
Yeah, or, or jock itch. Similar idea.
Sure. They've got creams for that. I don't know why you're
They
putting
do.
Band-Aids on
They do.
jock itch, but...
Well, I mean, not in a while.
So, the Philadelphia experiment is the basis of the Montauk Project. It seemed like everybody links back to everybody in the Montauk Project links back to the Philadelphia experiment.
Right.
So the Philadelphia experiment, aside from a movie in 1984 and another one sometime in the 90s.
No, 2012.
Was it 2012? Jesus. Wow, Hollywood is
was
running
like
out of ideas.
And it wasn't the same movie. It was part two. But, I don't know. I haven't watched either.
No, me neither.
But anyway,
me neither.
I think it was 2012.
So to summarize what the Philadelphia experiment was, apparently in 1943, the destroyer, the USS Eldridge, was fitted up to be turned invisible, to avoid radar, vision, everything. Apparently that did not happen. They screwed up, and instead of making it invisible, they teleported it 200 miles away to another area.
Yeah, Norfolk, Virginia.
Yeah, Norfolk, Virginia. And then it came back, but 10 minutes back in time. So it came back 10 minutes before it left or something. It was time travel. There was time travel involved. It was, there was a 10-minute difference between when it left and when it came back, and it was kind of instantaneous. So
the funny thing is there's really no witnesses that come forward until 1955. 1955, there's a witness who comes forward. Yeah, but that's the story, is basically, you're right. Yeah. It, the ship disappears. Poof. Big green fucking light. Mm-hmm. Right. And then, reappears. And then what happened to the sailors?
So, it was not a good day for them. So the ones that didn't go crazy and didn't disappear apparently fused into the hull.
Yeah. Gross. Right.
It's and this is the conspiracy, right? There was this big cover up. This happened, and they screwed up.
It would have to be, and we talk about that quite a bit. Like when something's that big, the cover up would have to be immense. Like if you have a number, I can't imagine. This is the U.S. What do they do? They describe it as a destroyer escort. So it's a destroyer, but it's not a full.
But it's still a really big ship.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I mean. So it needs a lot of people just to make it operational, make it run. Mm-hmm. You need a crew. So I mean, how many of those people died? I mean, there's no real numbers, right? There's nothing that's.
And the boat continued to exist after that. So it's not like it did this and then this ship disappeared. No, the ship continued on with its merry little way. And eventually, all destroyers.
And then how did you get the bodies out of the steel? That's the question.
Exactly, right? You got apparently crazy. So I think some experienced nausea. So apparently not all the sailors died. I think some experienced nausea, but some went crazy.
Some went crazy. Some just died. Yeah. And then there was a bunch of them that were melded with the hull.
And some disappeared, right? Some just, and we know, I'm sure you're going to touch on this, the ones that disappeared.
There were two. They were brothers. And they bailed off the ship.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that later.
So that's the Philadelphia experiment, if you had to summarize it. Make ship invisible. Yeah. Instead, time travel, teleportation. Oops. Bad. Not intended.
Yeah. Yeah. And it kind of reminds me of The Fly. Remember watching The Fly? Where, I'm not talking the original Fly. I'm talking about Jeff Goldblum Fly, because that's our era.
But the original Fly commented on kind of the same thing, where you've got parts swapped around, right?
Don't eat me. That was the original.
Yeah.
Jeff Goldblum, oh, cool, Mr. I'm turning into a fly. My teeth are falling out. Yeah.
Yeah, and he does that. I remember the scene where he breaks the guy's arm when he's arm wrestling.
Yeah, he's hurt. When he snapped, because he's super strong. He's a fly.
I guess the proportional strength of a fly, I guess.
I think any
really
insect in comparison, like what was it? If a flea was the size of a chihuahua,
how high it would jump over the Empire State Building or something like that. Yeah,
right? It was like So they're, but but they materialize and then dematerialize, and I guess that's where people were, they're embedded. They must have moved.
Enough ship in time.
But the whole reason, and this, there was another name for it. And what was it called? It was Project Rainbow.
So right? Project Rainbow, yeah. They were trying to track it down. So we'll get to that part. But basically, the Office of Navy Research was trying to find any and what they do in this. This is why you don't feed the trolls or the crazy people, because stuff keeps going on. But they eventually had looked into this and they were trying to link it back. They're like, well, what do we have? What is around that has it? And Project Rainbow exists. Project Rainbow was the U-2 experiments, not the band, but the U-2 spy plane the CIA was using.
Right.
So that's the linkage to Project Rainbow.
You mean the B-2?
Is it the B-2? What's the U-2?
U-2 is the band.
The CIA was doing it, and so this is the thing with this.
B-2 bomber was the stealth skin. I don't know.
Yeah. There was a Project Rainbow. The CIA was involved in, involved in visibility, except more like sensor invisibility versus physical invisibility, and nobody teleport and.
No, and it was, and it's obviously in Canada did it too.
Yeah, so this is where this story is not like people say, "Oh my God, trying to make something invisible." Well, we got an invisibility cloak now, by the way.
Yeah, the mirrors, right? It's all different.
So there's mirrors. One where they've got something where they're able to bend light around something, but I don't think it's actually visible light. So we'd have to look into this. But,
and that's
But if you Google real Harry Potter invisibility cloak, it'll come up with this experiment where they basically demonstrated that they can bend light around something. Now it's not visible light; it's the stuff you can't see, but it's theoretically sound that you can put this thing on something, bend light around it, and the thing is invisible.
Like the Predator.
Well, yeah, that's more like camouflage, right? Like that's not bending light around. That's more like I'm mixing to the background, or is it? I don't know.
What a great movie.
Apparently, mud works against his infrared vision, I guess.
Who would have thunk?
So there were a couple experiments that did this. They tried to do this thing. So one of them was the diffuse lighting experiment that the Canadian Royal Canadian Navy, or it's Royal the Royal Navy, the Royal Canadian Navy. They basically tried to make it so that using lighting to make the ship blend in with the horizon.
Right.
Now
that was probably on a rowboat because it is our Canadian Navy.
Apparently, they tried to do it on Corvettes. They tried to do it on Corvettes. I don't know how Corvettes work versus. I know
we have
smaller.
The same ships, so it was
not the car.
Just for you folks listening, the Canadian Navy is very underfunded,
very old. Yeah, we have ships. Our submarines go down; they just don't come up.
The people that work on these ships are like, dude, I can fix anything.
It's like the Sea Kings, right?
What's that?
The Sea Kings.
Oh yeah, the choppers. Yeah, the
same
choppers.
Idea.
Yeah, like oh my God. Like the Air Force 2 or whatever it is, like the president, that's a Sea King. That the chopper he has. That's
really
that's an old Sea King. Yeah.
Oh my dear Lord.
Very robust. Yeah, but that's what it is. It's all retrofitted with like anti-missile and all sorts of crap. But yeah, his is probably in much better shape than ours. But.
Probably, yeah, and that's where I feel for a lot of our service members when they're dealing with this. You're on a ship. And the ship is older than, your dad is.
You served on it, your dad and your grandpa all served on the same ship coming out of Halifax Harbor. Which is, and we don't have many. I don't know. I feel almost embarrassed that I don't know this, but I know we don't have many ships.
Our Navy and our Air Force are not great. This is the problem, right? What happens when budgets need to be cut? What don't we need?
Yeah.
Well, who's going to invade us, right? The U.S. will save us.
Well, that's the hope. And then we had Trump go, you're on your own.
You're on your own, yeah.
Well, we don't fucking know you.
Well, but that was it, right? Where they said, like, I know NATO is an alliance that we all agreed to, but maybe we won't come in.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe we'll help, maybe we won't. I mean, hey, but nobody wants Russia as their neighbor, not even the Americans.
But technically, we do have Russia as our neighbors because we over the Arctic, right?
From a very but so we're getting off track.
Yeah. So anyway, diffuse lighting experiment. That's one. Yeah. There's another one which was the I'm going to say this wrong. So the degaussing wasn't an experiment. Degaussing
is a real thing. That's the B-50 or B-52, the B-2, the B-2 bomber or the U-2 bomber, whatever you want to call it.
So ship degaussing is where they go off and they try to make the ship so that it's not going to
radar proof, right?
Yeah, I know. I thought it was more magnetic mines. Did it have a thing on? I didn't read. I was focusing on
the magnet. Yeah, so the magnetic mines are a big thing.
Yeah,
and they float just under the water, and then the ship comes through,
and they move towards.
As soon as they attach, it's like the door chimes when you go into a store. That's all that is a magnet releasing, right? So you break that connection, and boom, this thing fucking blows up. Very dangerous. Killed a lot of sailors. But yeah, that is the degauss. That's right. You're right. Degaussing is the magnetism.
Correct. Yeah, where they
and they wanted to try and do all of this at once. That was the whole point of this, right?
So think of the era this was all happening. This was World War II ending and Cold War, where we needed to step our game up. I was watching on Netflix. If anybody's interested, it's called Age of Tanks. It's fascinating to see how the U.S. figured after they figured we got the atomic bomb, we're good, and then they realized, Russia's got one now, and our tanks are old. Crap.
Yeah. Oh boy, we're in trouble.
Oh boy, we're in trouble. Yeah, we can't use nukes tactically without encouraging the other side to use them tactically, and then we're all screwed. So.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest problem with nukes is that. But if you get someone crazy enough,
or don't care, right?
Or they don't care, they're like, okay, so we're just gonna fuck it.
One of the other experiments was it's called the Yehudi lights, and this is for planes. And this is a similar idea to try and change the profile of the plane so that lamps of automatically controlled brightness placed on the front and leading edges of an aircraft to raise the aircraft's luminescence to the average brightness of the sky, a form of active camouflage is in counter-illumination. Right?
Right. And that's a thing.
That's a thing.
That's a thing.
It doesn't help. Doesn't help versus radar or anything else, but you can't see the plane flying in until they've dropped a bomb on your face.
Well, and I think when you have planes that are flying at massive heights, right? Then you have these the intelligence planes, right? Mm-hmm. They're taking pictures. Yep. I mean, those are, they're way above any radar anyway.
Yeah.
Right. But they can be seen
because you're moving across the sky, right? If you can see down, they can see up,
especially on a clear day, right? So, I mean, that would be a great feature for family or a giant sticker that's blue.
Right.
There you go. CIA. That one's free. You can have that one.
But so just when people think about, oh my God, what the hell? Like you can make stuff invisible. Well, they were trying to do all sorts of stuff.
And they probably succeeded.
Yeah. Phil, right? What was the Philadelphia experiment according to our resident expert? Which
one?
Let's focus on the crazy guy for now. But remember he was talking about, it uses what? It used Einstein's.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's zero proof. So what they expected was they were using Einstein and he wasn't the only one, but a bunch of them tried to do what they call a unified theory, right? So, and it's never been proven, right? And what it was is in the natural world, and I have it written down somewhere. So they basically take Einstein's theory it's called general theory, right, of relativity, and they also take gravitational theory, right, all these things, and they want to find in the natural world basically one theory that explains it all. Doesn't fucking happen. But that was what was supposed to be used to help, make this ship disappear. And so there's no record at all of Einstein actually working on this project, or Nikola Tesla.
Yeah, he was referenced. I saw some references where they talked about him involved.
Yeah, that they needed him because of he was doing stuff with electromagnetism. He was a brilliant guy. but he was at the end of his fucking life.
He died in a hotel room in love with a pigeon and a box of parts that he told was a death ray or something that was going to pay for his hotel. It was really just a sad ending for his entire story.
For a guy that was, you know, I mean, a lot of his stuff, he was a brilliant dude. I mean, he worked for Edison company. He was a smart guy, but he was 86 years old. He died in like January, and this happened in October, right, of 43. So this was October 28th, and like he died in fucking January 7th, I think it was. Don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure it was January 7th. So he was fucking old on his deathbed, and he's apparently there helping with this.
Yeah, it doesn't time travel.
But that's the claim. Well, they didn't expect that was just a fucking accident, right? They're like, well, we want to make shit. Guess what happens? Where shit gets really, I mean, the story in itself is so grandiose, but I mean, it gets even weirder, right? I mean, so we skip forward. There's zero mention from 1943 to 1955. And then in comes this guy named Morris Jessup. And that's where I started to kind of read. I knew the story of Philadelphia experiment, right? Yeah, and you kind of knew it too. You were like, you knew this, but I didn't know. I thought there was more to it.
Same here. I was the same. It's the same boat. I'm like, okay, wait a second.
I did too. I'm like, oh God, this is really like the Montauk Project. In fact, so the only other, now we know that Morris Jessup was a writer. He wrote
a book. It was the Case for UFO or whatever.
Case for the UFO. And he wrote some other ones that just never made it.
Yeah.
He was not a prolific writer. But yeah, he was into all that shit. So he gets basically a letter from this guy. Was it 2 letters?
Yep.
I don't know. He thinks he's a crackpot, right? And
dismisses him outright.
You're a fucking lunatic. And the guy claims in his letters that he was on an adjacent ship watching this take place, the Philadelphia experiment. And that's basically where this is all born from, is that this guy, Carlos Allende, who at the time was real covert, right? He did not say his name.
He ran through, he was like Carl
Allen.
Yeah, he ran by a bunch of weird aliases. I think he called himself a doctor or a colonel or a captain or.
Oh, fuck. But there's no proof that he was anything. He was just some fucking crackpot.
The only proof, and I believe this is the only proof that he was, air quotes, something, was that there was according to his sailor, he had his sailor ID number. His certificate of
he may have been on a
was
ship.
Found. That's right. The SS Andrew Firthwith. Andrew Firthwith. And that was the one that he said he was on when he saw the ship show up.
Right. Okay. Well, so that's 55, right? So then he basically, this Jessup guy's like, fuck, okay, you're a fucking crackpot. Then he gets a call from the ONR, which is the Office of Naval Research. And they go, hey, you wrote this fucking book, and there's like all these scribbles in it about time travel, aliens.
Because Carlos Miguel Alenade is his real name, air quotes, had sent a marked up copy of the case for the UFO to the ONR, and the ONR followed up on it.
They did
with the author
because of the book, and he was like, I don't fucking know. And then they compared the handwriting. And it was determined that one of the authors was the same person, or like one of the people there was apparently 3 people that wrote in different colored pens. So they were like, oh, there's obviously 3 people. Years later, it was determined that it was all likely the same guy, just writing air quotes.
And different, and we're talking complete crazy. We're talking capitalization.
Like capital letters. Weird capitalization of not using capitals where you shouldn't, just fucking nonsense. And he used 3 different types of pens. Who does that?
Maybe his first 2 broke. I don't know.
Yeah. So, but obviously whatever he wrote flagged something, right? They were like, okay. So that 1957, that's when he gets a call. So it's about 2 years after his first letters from Allende. And he's like, I don't fucking know. Like, What do you want me to do? So they actually fucking published this.
Which it makes no sense. So they apparently were able to get funding from their department to publish the Varro edition or the Varro edition of the case for the,
Varro edition.
The case for the UFO in 1958. They got with the markups.
Yeah. Makes no sense.
I have no idea why they did that.
25 to 100 copies. Yeah.
I'm sure they're worth something though. If you could track one of those down, I bet you they were worth a pretty penny.
Maybe. But what did they say? That's so fantastic.
How did they justify it? That's what I don't understand.
Yeah, like why bother? Why I don't understand either.
Like, what's the point of publishing? You've got the marked up copy, and you want to publish it for your friends? Like, this is a good Christmas present?
Yeah, I don't know. And the book itself wasn't like it was real popular.
No, right? None of more so. Unfortunately, our poor buddy Jessup winds up committing suicide. I think 1959. Yeah, 59. 59. Like 2
years later, because he tried to cash in on this too. I think, and it failed. His life fucking fell apart, and he died in Florida.
Yeah. And suicide now. So again, suicide.
It was
right?
Suicide.
Well, it was suicide. Wait, we're talking a conspiracy, right? Suicide. He knew too much. Then
they published what he knew.
Exactly right. So it's like,
wait a minute. Doesn't make any goddamn sense to me. Whatever.
Yes.
But a lot of the theories, when you go down some of these, like I read some of the stuff, like he was, he did know too much and he was assassinated. It's like, okay. He also was in financial ruin and his wife left him.
His books weren't selling. Like,
and he was in financial. Yeah. He lost everything and his wife left him and a bunch of things. So yeah, I'm leaning towards that, he just decided that he'd had enough.
But the story doesn't end there, unfortunately. So this Varro edition has been published. And then you've got, so this is
crackpots come out of the woodwork.
Okay. Well, I'm going to reserve judgment on the crackpot thing, but it's that idea that once you start, so folks, you can't take your stuff off the internet, but what you can do is you can pollute the hell out of it. And this is a perfect example of where stuff starts to get twisted. It's the telephone game played out over 60 years where it starts as one thing, moves through, somebody does something. A fellow by the name of Vincent Gaddis references the Varro edition in his book, Invisible Horizons, The Mysteries of the Sea. So he starts talking about the Philadelphia experiment. So it again starts showing up. So it's now being used as a reference point in not somebody else's book.
Yeah. Like a guy that wrote a book just based on what he knew. And you got to remember, like when this book would have been published and first written, I mean, there wouldn't have been a lot, the 1950s, nobody talked about UFOs, I mean, Roswell even, it had something land on someone's property and still people were like, oh, they said it wasn't a UFO, so we're okay.
Yeah.
Government doesn't lie. Those guys never lie.
Government doesn't lie. Right? Oh God, if only we could go back to those
days. They only
days.
tell us the truth.
That's right. Communists are everywhere.
Not patriotic to not believe your government. But yeah, so you've got this book that's written, and then it starts to become gospel.
Well, it starts.
Oh, that was written in the Varro edition,
right? The special edition, and it doesn't even stop there. So he didn't write explicitly about it. He wrote he didn't write. It wasn't just about it. It was a bunch of stuff, but it was included in there. Then you're looking at in 1976. So that was Vincent Gaddis.
Good year.
Yes. Good. Yeah. Hey, good year. So Vincent Gaddis published his book, Invisible Horizons, in 1965. A fellow by the name of Charles Berlitz in 1976 published The Philadelphia Experiment, Project Invisibility, which references Gaddis's work and goes back to the Varro edition, which the ONR published because of reasons. Like they actually determined.
Maybe they thought it was like really, because there was so few published. Maybe they thought, oh, this is top secret stuff. Like I got an edition or, it's at a flea market. What is this? Well, 100 copies only published?
Maybe it's fiscal end of year, Phil. So government tends to work on fiscal end of year. So fiscal end of year, if you have money left over, you lose it. So they're like,
right. You don't get it next year.
You don't get it next year. They're not like, great, you saved money. Okay, here's your budget again. Obviously, you didn't need it because you didn't spend it.
Right.
So maybe that's it. Instead of buying new desks, they decided to publish the. But by doing that, by feeding that, whatever, right?
Maybe somebody thought, oh, this is pretty interesting. Yeah. Or they needed enough copies, to use it as a training tool.
Or to hold up a bunch of tables. Maybe a bunch of tables were unleveled, and they're like, this is the right width.
Yeah, who knows? But that brings us to 1984.
Oh, yes. Yes.
1984. So
it's the Montauk Point jump-off point.
Yeah, it really is the Montauk jump-off point. But we're not going to talk about Nichols and any of those people. But we will talk about, so a movie is made in the Philadelphia Experiment, and it's really, it gets like 16% rotten on Rotten Tomatoes.
And it's supposed to be based off a true story because it's based off the Philadelphia Experiment Project Invigilante, which claimed to be a factual account because it was talked about the Vero edition, which references Carlos
only
Allenay.
Loosely based on anything in reality.
Yeah.
That there was a ship, the USS Eldridge. Mm-hmm. That's a fact. And from there,
that's where it stops. Else. And that's where the facts kind of stop.
There was a ship.
There was a ship.
There was a ship. So this story, and I can't remember the director's name. Raffi, I think it was.
I had it somewhere.
It'll be up here. I'll find his name.
I don't think it was the singer Raffi.
Well, he was a writer, director. Anyway, this 1980, and I think this is really important. It had been rewritten like 9 times. It has no reference. Like it's not a, it has nothing really to do with what the conspiracy is, right? It's a story of time travel and all this other shit, but it's not, I haven't watched the movie and I really should.
No, I don't think it really should. I think
maybe I'll find it on From the Future.
God, it'll trigger you.
I knew it. It'll trigger it. We'll be doing the next podcast going, hi, I'm Burt Lancaster.
But that was the thing, right? So the tie to the Montauk Project is this movie triggered a bunch of people to remember stuff.
Yes, that for Montauk, it was Preston Nichols. And for this, it was Al Bielek. So Mr. Al Bielek. Now, here's the thing about Al Bielek. And if you Google him and I watched a few videos, did you watch any of his commentaries and stuff?
No.
Okay. So I did. I thought, oh, fuck, I'll listen to him. He reminds me of like a grade 9 math teacher. Very, like, he looks the part. He looks like he could be a scientist. He has this air about him. He's very well spoken. And, he is talking absolute crazy. Like, fucking next level. If level 4 is like, aliens, then he's up here at level 7 talking like way out to lunch. But he describes, so he said he saw the movie and then he, same as Nichols, was brought, his brainwashing somehow got faded out and he remembered that he and his brother, you said his first name was Cameron, is his last name, but is it Daniel?
I just remember Duncan, Cameron.
Oh, Duncan Cameron.
They kept calling, so I'd have to go back to my Montauk note.
Yeah, no, I think it's Duncan Cameron is his actual full name. Because I know there's so many, but him and his brother are basically, he recollects that him and his brother were on the ship, right? They were crew members of the ship. And then, they jumped off. They were like, holy fuck, what's going on? And they booked it and jumped off, which then ended them up in 2137. So they materialize in the year 2137, and they wake up in a hospital being treated for radiation poisoning. Okay, sure. You're in 2137. Sure. Apparently the world has changed. The earth is like, climate change and all of this, the flooding, Florida doesn't exist anymore. The panhandle is like, it's gone. All this other shit.
It's bad.
Wars. It's bad.
It's a bad future. Okay.
It's not a great future there. Yeah. So then They're there for like 6 or 7 weeks, or whatever, a few months, I don't know. And then they get teleported to 2739 or something. I don't know. It's 2700 in the future. And, hey, life's pretty fucking good. There's like aliens, and there's fucking cities floating in the water, just all sorts of shit. And so the idea was that, him and his brother were supposed to go back to where they started in 1943.
That's when the Philadelphia experiment apparently happened in 1943.
That's right. So they were supposed to find a way back. And, he ended up back in 1984.
Conveniently, just in time for the Philadelphia experiment, the movie.
He was there for
the premiere. He really wanted to catch that.
Gotta be there. You gotta get me out of here. So, but unfortunately, his brother didn't make it. Don't know why. Now, with that said, they also are in different bodies than what they were born in.
Folks, this is why I saved this for later on after we got all the facts about how the Philadelphia experiment progressed. And there'll be a crazy board and some notes you might want to follow along with on the website. But this is where it kind of gets nuts, which is why I'm leaving it to Phil.
Yeah. So, leave it to me. I like all the crazy shit. Even for me, it's So this is where, he then starts to go, okay, there's all this stuff. He actually starts doing lectures.
People go to them.
Lots of people go to them. He makes headlines. There are people that believe his story. The one thing that helps with that is that when he tells the story, he's very believable. Like, I watched he doesn't stutter. He doesn't, you know how when you watch him, he's a great speaker. Like, when you look at Nichols speak, you go, oh, Jesus, what is wrong with this guy?
Not a lot of charisma.
He looks crazy.
Not a lot of charisma. And
zero charisma.
Yeah. And his speaking patterns.
Well, and he's all over the place, and he's
like our podcast.
Yeah. Like us, less eye rolling. less crazy. But yeah, he's a great speaker. So people like to listen to him. And like I said, he dresses in a suit. He's a well-dressed man. He seems like he's not crazy.
Did you see the pictures of Carlos Miguel Alenade? What he looks like?
Well, this is Carlos Miguel Allende.
Allende. Yeah, sorry. I keep calling Alenade like lemonade. Allende.
Yeah, no, it's Allende. Allende is his name.
When you see Carlos, he's got that university professor sort of look where he's got the...
Yeah, and this is not where he's doing... I mean, he died in 2011, I think.
Yeah, and I think he was sort of out of public consciousness for
quite a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, like he was doing this, but he looked the part, like he, and he does, like in some of the pictures, like he's got his pipe and his, where if you look at, Preston Nichols, I mean, this guy is dressed in track pants and a t-shirt, and you go, and he's like got food stains everywhere. Like, well, when they boarded the alien plane and they picked apart my brain and separated my consciousness from you go, oh, fuck, you need meds. We need to get you on some lithium stat. Like, holy fuck. Where this guy is like, well, this is what the future looked like. And, he's describing things like, and this is the other part. So people look to him as a kind of like a prophet. Right? Oh, well, there's going to be climate change. Well, they've been preaching climate change for the last fucking 40, 50 years.
Oh, God. Yeah, so, exactly. When you look at this now, mind you, we talked about, what was it? Melting of the ice caps, or was it, there was what? We're going to be new ice age. So if you look at the different parts of when we talked about climate change, they would look at like what's happening right now and say, okay, the world's going to get colder. And ozone layer.
So it's pretty easy. It's like Nostradamus, right? I mean, if you look at human history, I mean, I don't know. There's prophets are basically people pointing at the fucking obvious to me. I mean, for the most part, right? There's going to be a World War III. Yeah, fuck. Of course there is. We're people. There's always been wars.
Correct. Water is wet.
So he predicted, that's right. We're a terrible species. We're a cancer on this planet. What do you expect us to do? Anyway, yeah, so he predicts another war. He predicts that there'll be, a great change in the environment, and there'll be left like 300 million people be left. That's a weird number. He apparently predicts the New World Order.
It's a podcast episode for that. Like and subscribe.
Yeah, like and subscribe. Check us out, New World Order. Apparently, they're gonna fucking take over everything.
Do you know who was it that quoted that said, "I don't know what World War III will be fought with, but I know World War IV will be fought with sticks."
With sticks and stones. I think that was Mr. Al Bangay, who was our grade 7 teacher. To be honest,
fair enough. That does sound like something he would say.
He was a pretty cool cat. I really like that guy. He passed away a number of years ago. But yeah, no, you're right, because any new war, everything is unmanned. Right? Like, it's all drones and fucking, who knows what, biological.
And when you're losing, when you have a war, so the reason why, again, watching Age of Tanks, great series, recommended on Netflix.
Age of Tanks.
It really covers the idea of these proxy wars, right?
Mm-hmm.
So where you have, the U.S. isn't going against Russia and China, they're going against North Korea. Right? They're defending
their allies. Yeah.
Right? They're defending their allies. So the two powers aren't fighting. Same thing Afghanistan, right? The Russians weren't going against the U.S. They were going against the Mujahideen, who were supported and backed by the U.S., who then flew planes into, became Al-Qaeda and flew planes in. But we're deviating. Phil, continue your lovely story about Al.
Allende. I mean, that's, in a nutshell, that is the story. He basically goes on to say that, he ended up in 1984. He's saying about alien technology. Then he gets into, this is where almost like the Montauk Project is born, right? So,
and the less said about that, the better.
Right. However, all of these programs are apparently born of this project, right? So MK Ultra. Then you also have Area 51, where they're developing new technologies, anti-gravity. There's mentions of Nazi anti-gravity technology being used, and all sorts of craziness. And it all stems from this unified
field
theory.
Unified
field theory.
Yeah.
UFT. But other than that, like, Allende just continues to do these, and then he fades away. He just is like, because people are reading and they're very skeptical. Like,
are they skeptical though? So that's one of the challenges I think we run into is, are people skeptical, or do they not want to believe? So if I say something plausible and something crazy, well, obviously, why would I believe the plausible thing? Because you're trying to hide. And this is where conspiracies are fascinating, because people make that choice to pick on things with the conspiracy, the crazy, because they don't want to be the sheep. You don't want to be sheep. So you want to be your unique snowflake. So you decide, I'm going to follow this. And that's where this Philadelphia experiment thing is crazy, because you look into it and you're like, there is
a huge belief system in out there for this, where you have the Montauk Project, and then you have the Philadelphia experiment. And I don't fully understand how. I don't know. I think there's just some people that want to hate the government so much, right? They just want to hate that they go, fuck yeah, they did that.
But look at our previous episode with Paperclip. We know the government engages in shady, like they do stuff. MK Ultra is not a make-believe thing.
No. And it actually is some people believe it still exists.
And if you think they stopped doing, like, do you think the U.S. said, you know what, let's just focus on drones now, right?
Yeah.
They've got...
Let's just be ethical now.
That's right. We'll be ethical here, right? So that's...
Oh, yeah.
You're familiar with the state of the people in Guantanamo?
Well, the Guantanamo... Yeah, for sure. Let's move let's torture people, like, in Cuba, in a little island,
but it's the quasi-legal state of them. So they're not prisoners of war, which means Geneva Convention doesn't apply.
Right.
And they're not citizens, so U.S. law doesn't apply.
No, they're not citizens, but it is considered to be a United States piece of land, right?
So only because Cuba can't take it back. They're like, what are we going to do? Are we going to go to war with the States to get back their prison facility they've set up?
Yeah.
So the U.S. basically says we can do whatever the hell we want. Like none of the U.S. Charter, the U.S. Constitution, any of those things apply to these people. And the Geneva Convention doesn't apply because we weren't at war with Al-Qaeda or whoever.
And there's another thing too. It's the when 9/11 happened, war and terror.
The Patriot Act? Yeah.
So they fall under that Patriot Act too. So they can detain them for unlimited amount of time.
And they have.
There's no, for sure. And they tortured them. There's been proof, there's been videos that have come out that they torture them with sound.
They're called enhanced interrogation techniques, Phil. They're not called torture. We don't torture. We do enhanced interrogation where we pretend you're drowning.
Your fingernails out one by one. That's an enhanced technique? I don't know.
But that's the kind of shadiness you see government. So again, I think people really have a lack of trust in their government to do the right thing or a good thing.
Yeah. And now maybe more than ever, right? I mean, but we're also all so informed. Like, we're not scholars, but we can go online and sift through all of this stuff.
Exactly. We pulled this up. So we have, I don't know, in our own little way, aided to the cycle of the Philadelphia experiment remaining in the public consciousness. Because now people, when they Google it, they'll say, oh, these guys did a Philadelphia. Look at all this stuff. Yeah. Oh, man.
And we're not just here to debunk.
And we're not really debunking. This is,
we're not debunking. But at the same time,
we're not drinking the Kool-Aid either.
Yeah. Like, within reason, I'm all for, thinking there's a cryptid Bigfoot out there. I do believe that there's something fantastic and weird, but I can't wrap my head around this. This doesn't make any sense.
What I hate is when you've got these again, this all comes down to the witness statement of Carlos Miguel Allende.
Yeah.
It's him. Like anybody else on that ship that he served on, we're like, no, we didn't see a ship materialize out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, this is it. Yeah.
Don't know why the ONR published the Vero edition though. I actually have to update the crazy board I missed that when I was doing my crazy board for this episode. Like they debunk it. So they actually release a statement saying, yeah, hey, there's nothing saying unified field theory works at all. And we can find no evidence.
Nobody has any proof that is a thing.
And they couldn't find any evidence.
It's been talked about for 100 fucking years, but it's not something that's been proved.
But they couldn't find any evidence to back up a claim of U.S. secret experiments to make ships with the USS Eldridge at all. Right?
Yeah, or that it was retrofitted with any kind of equipment.
And Project Rainbow, they track that. They say, well, we track it to this. So sure, there's a Project Rainbow reference, but it's like I think it was 1955. So it was much later that you see the Project Rainbow. Now, mind you, Rainbow does talk about, if you, it's in my notes, and I think it's on the, where's my page?
Yeah, here? I read into it a little bit.
They actually mention, letter contract number 313, provide for theoretical studies and investigations into the use of electromagnetic radiation in connection with Project Rainbow.
Right.
So
there's no doubt that the government has looked at doing these things, right? Because from a standpoint, their ships were getting blown to fuck. Even though they were winning the war, they were still getting beaten, their asses beaten by U-boats. Big time. U-boats and mines, magnetic mines. They were blowing their ships apart. Everybody's ships. So you have this whole, well, if you're invisible and you're no longer magnetic, you can fight these guys, so I understand that there could have been talk of this, and maybe, who knows, maybe Allende overheard something.
So that I think is where now he's just from what I heard about his markups, it sounded like that's a very disjointed. Now, some brilliant people are completely messy desks, scatterbrained. Their notes look terrible. I think Einstein had horrible handwriting. I think maybe he didn't.
He was also dyslexic. Yeah.
Okay. Different ways of perceiving reality, right?
Yeah,
whether dyslexia, autism, whatever, they perceive things differently, and therefore they communicate differently.
Right.
And who knows what he thinks he saw, but nobody, like, again, he's staying the claim. A ship appeared.
It disappeared and reappeared 10 minutes later. He also makes the claim that he saw people embedded in the ship. Like as if he was like there.
But he also claimed to know Einstein, be a pen pal of Einstein.
Correct.
That him and Einstein were close. Like he understood.
There is zero proof of that.
None. I don't think they've ever been in the same city together.
Right. So, and that's where you're left with, like these fucking, I don't know. The following is pretty big in the conspiracy community, but is it justified? Honestly.
But it's that Vero edition. So if we had to say what the linchpin of this whole thing is when the O&R published the Vero. If they hadn't done that,
they gave some credibility.
They gave credibility
to a story that should never have had. And you have to wonder why. They were bored. Like you said, was it a funding thing? Do we need to spend some money? We've got, I don't know, $15,000, $25,000 hammers. We can't do any more of those.
That's right. My toolbox is full of all these really expensive hammers. And by the way, so the reason why, folks, the reason why governments tend to do stuff like that, particularly the military, is they have very exacting specifications. And anybody making hammers is like, yeah, I'd have to retool my entire factory to produce hammers just for you. So here's what it's going to cost. Pay me my $10,000 per hammer.
Yeah. Those are very expensive hammers.
They are. They're not necessarily any better hammers. They meet very specific specifications.
They're very specific. Yeah. Because they're military. Used for nailing nails.
That's right. That's right.
Weird. But yeah, there's, I don't know what else.
Well, again, it's just so that's I think the takeaway from this is the O&R gave credibility to this, and then it continued on. And then all of a sudden, it's being referenced in other books as a witness account, as a based on true story, based on true facts. And then Al Beck comes back from the future with Marty McFly and Christopher Lloyd in the DeLorean. Right.
And this absolutely fantastic story about traveling through time and space and how, and then of course you have the Montauk, which is its brother. I mean, these are two very interrelated stories. I don't know if Allende talks a whole lot about. I didn't get into that.
I've never seen him reference the Montauk at all. However, he does. He goes into detail about the unified field theory, and similar to a previous episode where he talked about, hey, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I can sound like an expert to you.
Well, of course,
but
yeah.
Anyway,
and that's kind of the gist of it, right? Is that he sounds really smart, but I don't know anything about unified field theory. You could talk to me all day about it and not know what you're talking about.
4 fundamental forces of the universe: electromagnetism, gravity, strong nuclear forces, weak nuclear forces.
Those are the 4.
That's what I know about them. And I know something has to do with magnets. And planets.
Planets. And all that great stuff.
Yeah.
And well, I'm glad we covered these, because it was something I wanted to look into for a while. But,
you know what the number one argument against time travel is? Do you know what the number, aside from the whole faster than speed of light and there's limits to the laws of physics? Do you know what the number one reason is?
No.
If we came up with time travel, we'd already be doing it. So we'd be time traveling back. And there's no way we would be doing it in such a manner that we wouldn't be screwing things up.
Yeah. And can you go forward or can you go backwards?
Oh, we can go forward. We're doing it right now.
Well, we're living in the moment.
Old Cory, he's died. Cory 5 seconds ago is gone.
That's right. So that's what I mean. I don't understand. It's way beyond my understanding and capability. And Einstein said that it might be possible, but nobody can. Who knows? Maybe we came from the future. I'm going to watch that movie tonight.
Back to the Future or the Philadelphia Experiment?
Philadelphia Experiment.
I was going to say Back to the Future. Why not?
Why not?
Phill, what are we talking about next week? You've kept me on edge. You told me before we started, you said you already have next week planned.
I do.
I am so just excited. I can barely contain myself.
You know what? It's very different than what we've done before.
Uh-oh.
No, it's good.
This is about beers you drink? Is this what it is?
I look like a big beer drinker, but only in the summer at camp. That's it. I don't drink otherwise. I know. It's fucking weird. Look at me. Look like I should be. No, I want to do a serial killer. I want to do John Wayne Gacy.
Okay.
That guy's fucking interesting and scary and all sorts of crazy. So, what do you think?
I think that's a great idea. Again, it's something I've only touched. I'm aware of something. He's the guy who dressed like a clown.
He was, yeah. And
did you ever watch The Devil's Rejects?
No.
So there's a character called Captain Spaulding. I think it's loosely based upon, now mind you, he's like a psycho killer versus a serial killer, but yeah.
Well, John Wayne Gacy was quite the fellow. I know a little bit about him. There are some interviews, with him years later. Like he spent a lot of time in prison. He wasn't like, Dahmer or, he died in prison. From my knowledge, I don't know. I'm going to read up on him. I'm going to check him out. But
fair enough.
He's got from what I understand, and I'd like to do more on some of the serial killer guys. I mean, I find their psyches very interesting. I find that their minds are very different. And what motivates them to be. The whole psychology behind it. And this is right up your alley.
Yes, correct. Abnormal psych I did criminal psychology in university. So yeah.
That's right. So this is, maybe you'll be able to teach me some things about.
Probably not. FYI, that was like almost 30 years ago. So.
Oh yeah. You are old. I forgot.
So we're clear. It's at least 20 plus years ago. And
yeah.
I can't even spell psychology anymore. I think it starts with an S.
Yeah. Well, and then I would hope there's a fellow that would like to be on the podcast who we've talked about. So maybe in a few weeks, not next week, you do your be more than maybe 3 weeks, I guess.
3 weeks, yeah.
An individual who is actually, has a background in science, a PhD.
Is this the Bigfoot fellow? Is this the fellow, the cryptid fellow?
Yeah, he would like to speak about Bigfoot, and I really like those topics. And I think he has a different approach to the creature that we all know as Bigfoot, and I think he'd be quite interesting. So, not the next topic. Not John Wayne Gacy, not your next topic, but my next topic.
Which I haven't thought of my next topic yet. I remember I originally pushed to do a season slate, and somebody said, "Hey, let's do this. Let's do it on a week by week basis."
Yeah, but I think I think we should maybe start a new season with this fellow. Why don't we do that?
Well, technically, I think I started numbering the ones on the podcast to see if I can update, but that's because we changed the opening. So. Folks, you may have noticed there's a different opening for this. I started saying, hey, why don't we call this season 2? Because we change the opening.
It's a little more catchy. Yeah. It's a little more rock and roll. That's us.
It's a little more rock and roll.
All right. Well, I'm Phill, and this is Cory, and we are the OC, and we hope you have a great day, evening, whatever. I think.
Take care, folks.
Have a good one.